Okay, shall we start then?
Let's do this.
Okay, do we need to introduce ourselves first?
I, I don't know. We can do if you like.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do. My name's Andy Train. I'm co-vice chair for Pride in Hull, and parade director, and I'm also involved with Interpride and have been involved with UK Pride Organisers Network. There we go.
Fantastic. I'm Craig. I'm a community development worker for Yorkshire Mesmac Sexual Health Prevention and Promotion Services in Hull, and I work specifically with the LGBT community, and I'm also a trustee for Pride in Hull. Okay, so Andy, why is Pride important to you?
My goodness me. Generally speaking, I think it's probably one of the singularly most important things to me in my life. It validates who I've become. It supports me. It supports other people. Um, but for me, especially, it's just been involved with something for almost 20 years that is so important to other people as well, and it's become interwoven within the city's fabric. It's offering. It represents its people. It represents people who live here or work here, and people who visit. I think it just makes the city a more vibrant place to be, and that's why it's important.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to that, for me, one of the most important things about Pride is that standing up with a voice and saying, we're still here. No, we don't have equality yet, and we will still fight for it, whether it's fighting for it in our country or fighting for it around the world. I think at the moment it feels even more so poignant now that we're seeing a potential rollback of the rights of transgender people, especially after quite a strong voice within the GRA consultation. Over 70% of people looks like they might be getting ignored. So I think a really important part of Pride is being able to say, actually, we're not where we need to be yet. We don't have equality yet, and that is something we will fight for. And I think on the other side of Pride for me as well, it's that one time of year and that one place where you really feel like you can be your true, authentic self without having to hold anything back, without having to look over your shoulder to see who's watching or to see who's making snide comments. And I think for certainly a lot of us, when we may be sure who we really are in public, whether that's us holding hands with our partner, whether that's going dressed as the identity that we know that we are, even if that doesn't match up with what our body looks like, that can quite often be a scary thing for people to do in even our society in 2020. So I think having that for Pride and having that, even if it is that just one day,
Mm.
is so massive for so many people.
It's just a really important platform, I think, for a lot of organisations. And I usually say it's about this shop front that they have an opportunity to engage with the community who come into a space that we've created, that they are participating in, that is kind of, well, it's uber safe, and you can literally just walk in and suddenly you are, like you say, your authentic self, and you are safe and you are welcome, and nobody's going to question, not going to, why are you here, what are you doing here. Everybody is welcome, and I think
Yeah,
that's, I'm really super proud of Hull, because it has done amazing things for people, and it's just a brilliantly sparkly rainbowy jewel that we have for the city. Shall we do the next question?
absolutely.
We kind of like answering some of these as we're going along, which is good. How does attending Pride in Hull make you feel?
I think it always makes me feel happy. It's a lot of work from both my Pride side and my Mesmac side on getting everything ready, getting all of our plans in place. But it's one of my, like, it is my favourite event of the year, both personally and professionally. Like, personally, for all the reasons that I've already said, hanging out with friends, getting to see some amazing artists, being able to, be that authentic self without any worry. But then on my professional side as well, working with MESMAC, it's such a fantastic opportunity to reach out to the LGBT community in such a wide range that I don't get to do in my day-to-day job, because while I spend all of my time working with LGBT communities, or the majority of my time working with LGBT communities, day-to-day life, you don't have that massive attendance of everybody.
No.
So, yeah, I think it makes me feel happy that I can do that, and that hopefully I'm helping people access services that they need, doing it in a way that's friendly and approachable, and just getting people engaged. How about you?
It makes me feel really, really happy. It makes me feel emotional. It makes me feel special, and it's really quite overwhelming. And there isn't really any other event that I've ever experienced or been to that comes anywhere near as far as that feeling of love. There are other events that we have in the city that are brilliant, but it's just that unique. And people say to me, well, you know, how is this possible? How does this happen? And it's just that all those ingredients coming together, all those super organisations that support the LGBT plus community, the fun stuff, the crazy stuff, the random things that people buy, and the face paint, the glitter, having a few drinks maybe, eating some food, it's just having a shared experience en masse with a load of other people, and it's so precious. And because it's like once a year, and occasionally people do call it like Christmas, like a second Christmas sort of feeling.
It's that Friday Christmas.
It has all that build-up of kind of like the build-up's massive, and so many meetings, so many everything, and then suddenly, and it's done, and off you go
and
again.
We're all exhausted the next day.
We're all exhausted, and it's kind of like then start planning for the next year. It's just incredible. You just don't want it to stop, and I can see why people become Pride tourists, really, that they go from Pride to Pride. And I've always said, support your local Pride, absolutely, and then try a regional one that's bigger. I consider us to be that regional one, and then go to a massive one. Go to Manchester or London or Brighton or somewhere abroad, because that can be a very different experience too. But they're as unique as the cities and places that they represent, and sometimes not cities, sometimes whole counties. But I'd love it. It's great. There's nothing quite like it.
So what makes it special for you then?
What makes it special? For me, those moments where it's almost like everybody comes together as one, and they listen, and they pay attention, and they laugh, and they love, and they scream, or they whatever, or they just raise their hands and join in on the YMCA in a moment of affirmation, or they allow that rainbow flag to pass over their head. And it's just great seeing people who've never been before, who it's their first time, and maybe they've come out, maybe they haven't come out, but that's not a problem. And they've brought their family, and it's just that excitement. And they might see somebody on stage that they've seen on TV or online or heard on the radio, and they're going to see them live at Pride, and it's for them. And it's just amazing. What about you?
I think similar, it's the people that make it special for me. People that I get to talk to, the people that you end up having a dance with that you've never met before, all of the connections that you make. I think how we have so many different services there as well, and services that aren't necessarily LGBT services, or maybe don't have big rainbows on the services 365 days of the year, but they recognise that actually there's a community that they need to engage with and that they need to get in. I think that's really great. But just the people in general, like you said, whether they've just come out, whether they've been out for years, whether they're not even part of the LGBT community, they're just an ally, and they're just bringing the kids along, maybe, and seeing kids there having a great time and you know, thinking back, maybe not to times that I remember, but certainly, you know, go back 10, 20 years when not a chance would people be taking their families, not a chance would it be seen as just a normal, fun event like it is now. And I think that's one of the things that's going to help us move forward as a society is just having everybody feel like they are welcome and that, you know, everybody can just come together to celebrate such an amazing thing.
Somebody said to me, when will you stop Pride? When will you stop doing Pride? And I said, well, when the simple answer is when the world feels like Pride. And I know that's never going to happen. But it shouldn't stop us working towards that. It shouldn't stop that achieving that goal and keeping going. Because I know for some people, and you know for some people, I know that there are people who it's their lifeline and they survive year on year. So I think particularly this year, having something and having some kind of engagement, even if it's online, is really more important than ever before. But people they do literally, don't they? They survive. That's their moment, and they don't know how they, you know, like filling their cup up again, you know, and then they kind of have that, they feel full and happy, and then they can sort of deal with the rest of the year until next time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Is it my turn to ask a question?
Absolutely.
I think it is. Do you remember your first Pride? My goodness me. What was it like?
So mine for this is sort of a double barrel answer. So my first Pride, I was probably about 13 or 14.
Right.
And I didn't even know that I was going to Pride. One of my friends was just like, oh, we're going to this event in, I think it was Pearson Park.
It was a wet one. It was very wet.
A wet one, so it got moved to Fuel.
I did.
So me and my friend turned up at Fuel, went and met his mum. I think his mum was part of the community. And I remember a mix of terror and absolute awe. Like, part of me was just like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Then there was that other part of me that was, well, what if somebody sees me here? What if my parents find out that I'm here? What if my friends find out that I'm here?
Yeah.
So we left quite quickly and we went to go see Waterboy at the cinema, which was a really, really bad film. But then my second part of that is when I was about 16, I went to my first Pride knowing that it was my first Pride, my first proper Pride. I was volunteering with the Shout group, the LGBT youth group that the Warren run. And I was helping out with them, telling people about the group because I've been going for a couple of years and trying to get people engaged in the group. And it was just that amazing feeling of I can be me, I can go talk to people that I've never met before, I can see these amazing acts. First time that I saw a drag queen. Just a sparkly wonderfulness.
Yeah.
What about you?
My first Pride, I didn't really appreciate what was happening or what it was about. I'd heard it on Radio Humberside being advertised. They said Queen's Gardens, there was this event. It was the first one for Hull, and I'd not come out yet. So ignore the cuckoo clock. I'd not come out properly yet, and I went with my mate, and it just seemed it seemed really strange, and I didn't know any better really because it was lots of stalls, lots of people talking. And I remember there being, you know, some people had dogs with them and things, and there'd been a sort of a solitary microphone and on a stand, and that was more, you know, there was not really how we see Pride now, really, you know. But I appreciate that now. I know being the first one was pioneering and so important, and that it fulfilled a need for people at the time, and there weren't as many venues to go to afterwards, so there maybe wouldn't have even been an official after party or anything, and as far as I could see, there hadn't been a parade or anything. But you know, now knowing about what Pride means to people, different things to different people, but really of its origins being a protest and and a platform and opportunity to kind of highlight the dreadful situation that people have lived through, fighting for, you know, their rights really, and not just equality but equity, and kind of moving things forward, and, you know, challenging things like Section 28 and all of those complete injustices that folks can't offer support in you know, they couldn't offer support at school for people like me when I was at school in the 80s. But then realizing what Pride could be by going to Manchester, New Canal Street, and being there and just being completely overwhelmed by this thing. I think it was Euro Pride in Manchester, 2003, and it was just crackers. It was just the biggest thing I've ever seen, and it was just a parade, and Sir Ian McKellen. I know him. Scandal, what's he doing here? And there he went past on this white car, in his white gear, and his kind of very flamboyant waving and everything. And again, like you said, just drag queens and people with wings and things, and people with rainbow wings, and people with very little on, and things, you know, they were just random, you know, and just such the volume of people as well, just overwhelming. So it was nice to have that contrast. But those were my first really, I would say, proper Pride experiences. Yeah.
So what's your most memorable memory of attending Pride in Hull?
I think that bit that we do every year where, and even if I'm not around or I'm not involved and I've maybe retired because I'm really old or something, that traditions will continue, things that make our Pride unique. So it will be the bit where often we'll read out names of people who we've lost. I know that sounds a bit heavy and a bit serious, but I think it's important to recognise people, and where we pass the flag over the crowd, and then we do have that craziness with and I just get a wave of emotion when I see we have the Real Village people on stage, you know, representation we've had in the past, army, you know, rail soldier, you know, we had a builder, we've had a police officer, you know, we've had ambulance, we've had the Lord Mayor, you know, just all joining in and having them sort of like as the cheerleaders and leading this, you know, stereotypical kind of crazy boom, you know, it's just affirmation. That's all it is. It's just like saying who's here and who's having a good time, who thinks that people should be able to love whoever they want to love, and it, you know, boom, and they all put their hands in the air, you know, and it's that, I think for that is just incredible that everybody joins in. That's for me. What about you?
I think for me the most memorable moment that I have is the first time that I stood on the stage as trustee and was able to just look out at the event from the stage and just be like, wow,
yeah,
there is a lot of people here.
A lot of people. I hope they're all
because I've been a trustee for a while, but it took me a while to actually get the chance to be able to dash away from work and actually get up on the stage. And I think every year I always think, this is so much work, this is so much work, this is so much work, but then it happens and it's so worth it. Yeah. But being stood on that stage, seeing what we've done in action, there's just no words to describe how amazing that feels. And just looking out into the crowd, seeing the diverse range of different people, seeing the beaming smiles on everybody's faces, seeing people having such a good time. I think that's probably my best memory.
That's cool. It is, and it's just this being part of a team of people who all have different skills and bring stuff to the table to fashion this thing. And it's because it always frustrates me when somebody will say, "Oh, it's Craig, and he's the organizer of Pride in Hull," you know, or "This is Andy, and he brings pride." Yeah, but there are people. There are lots of people. There's somebody who has to put the fencing up, somebody has to put the stage up, and it goes on. Somebody does the first aid, somebody has to liaise with the police, somebody has to close the roads, somebody has to make sure.
Has to look after Toilet Town.
Toilet Town, the licenses are in, you know, that we're getting some money in to pay for this stuff that's going to happen, you know, because it ain't free. People just don't go, "Oh yes, we'll magic wand it," I wish they would. Anyway, I'll shut up about that. On my hobby horse. So, do you have any keepsakes or souvenirs that you have kept?
Well, I have quite a few because I'm a bit of a hoarder. Probably
Yes.
my favourite keepsakes are I've got a wristband from every single Pride in Hull that I've been to.
Brilliant.
They're stored away in my mother's attic somewhere because I didn't have room for them. So I was like, you can just go in your attic, you don't really use them. And probably my signed T-shirt from Alaska 5000.
Brilliant.
How about you? I mean,
So-
I'm just looking at your screen and I can see so many different things.
So much stuff, mate. Honestly, question. People say to me, how are you single? I've no room for anything else, really.
Too much pride tat.
Too much pride tat. It's very difficult because it's like conferences. When you come back with lanyards and badges, and you think, oh, I'll bring that back. That'll give. It's like memory. People have a memory box. I've basically got a memory house. So honestly, it's whether it's flags or it's stuff that's specific that you wear in a parade or you've worn as an ID or something. Information, keeping stuff. Every time I go to Gran Canaria, new game map of the island, and it's kind of, most things haven't changed, but when things do, you're kind of glad that certain venues are open or not or whatever. But yeah, just so much stuff that and I really need to have it sort out and get rid. But it's it's something, it's whatever's new. I've not seen that face paint before, or that badge or whatever. But you can go a bit crazy with it. Yeah.
Throw it all on a store next year to get sold.
Get rid, mate. I know. Wristbands for events, crazy. I mean, the most annoying thing I probably do, I've done for the last 3 years, I think, is take the paper wristbands that we give to the people for the different roles and save one of each one and make it into like a fridge magnet thing that you can.
I don't think that's annoying. I love that. I love my wristband fridge magnet.
I'm glad, because it's kind of weird art, and having them all like lined up and going, this is the parade one, this is the one the stall holders had, etc. But yeah, that kind of just represents me, really, just a bit kind of crazy on this pride thing. It's just a great thing. It's a great thing. What's the next question?
So, why do you think pride is important to our city or others?
I think I've probably said a bit of this at the opening. It's just so very important to have as a kind of a statement for your city or your place, because I think that when people have a pride event, it says so much more about the place. So whether you're working there or you're living there or you're just visiting, it says we are open for business. We are open for you to come and see us because you're welcome. We're open to whomever. We accept people for who they are, and that you'll be safe. And that's the bit that sometimes gets me down, where people don't play that game. And but when we have this protective bubble of loveliness, as I usually describe it, where people have maybe had a drink and then they're going out, maybe on a pride night where you're kind of queuing for ages to get into venues and things, and you want to visit a few venues because you just want a bit of an experience, a bit of music from different places, that you've got to remember that not everybody's kind of there for you. But I think for a start, without bringing myself down, it's a statement for a city and a place to say, you're all right here. We're a good place to be.
Yeah.
So I think in a nutshell, that kind of says it for me, really. What about you?
I agree. I think it's a great statement for our city. One, that we've got a pride event at all, that we have such a big pride event as well, and that it's seen as such an important thing for our city, that it's part of the civic calendar.
Yeah.
That it's something that our council sees as really important. I also think it's important for, again, local services in Hull, being able to attend Pride and maybe being able to engage in a community that they don't get that opportunity to.
Yeah.
usually in their day-to-day job in the same way. Especially, you know, I think mental health services, sexual health services, drug and alcohol services, services that, you know, we know that are needed within the LGBT community. We know that our community face disproportionate issues with all of these things, and having those services there to interact and say, we are here, this is what we can do, even if it's just walking past that service, seeing that they're there, and then thinking in your mind, maybe I'll go and get some support at some point.
Yes.
And I know I keep banging on about the community stuff, but I think it's so important. Every time I go to a Pride event, no matter where it is, the first thing I do is find where the community stalls are, go see who's there, go see what they're doing. And I do think it's one of the best things about Pride and one of the most important things about Pride. So yeah, for me, I think it's those services being there and the statement it makes in our city that we are welcoming, we are supportive, and if you don't agree with Pride being a thing, if you're not welcoming to the LGBT community, if you're not supportive to the LGBT community, then you're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, you are. Get yourself a... Let's have a look. I think this is maybe the last one. Do you think Pride in Hull has changed people's perspectives, and if so, in what way and how? Gosh, this is a biggie.
This is a big question. We're finishing on a big one.
We are.
I think it has changed people's perspectives. I think, especially in terms of the heterosexual community, a lot of people, certainly a lot of people that I've spoken to, especially when I first come out to them and they haven't guessed straight away by looking at me and going by other stereotypes that I portray. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about people within the LGBT community, and I think that misunderstanding sometimes leads to fear. So I think by people, even if they're just stumbling across the event and they're not actively seeking out the event, I think that has such a powerful thing to change people's perspectives that actually I've got some differences from this community, but I've also got so many similarities to this community, and you know, it's our similarities that should bring us together, not our differences that should divide us.
Yeah.
I think people bringing their families to Pride, people bringing their kids to Pride, and I think that absolutely shows how Pride has changed people's perspectives, that they see it as an event that they can come and enjoy with their entire family. I think in terms of people who aren't out and maybe struggling with their sexuality or their gender identity, I think a lot of us have had that perspective at one time or another where we feel alone, nobody's going to understand us, there's something wrong with us. And I think that's such an important perspective that Pride changes. And, you know, we've both been told and we've both heard anecdotally of plenty of people who have felt so alone and like there's nobody out there that'll understand them, and then they've gone to a Pride event and boom, there's so many people that understand me, there's so many people that will accept me. And you know, if we're talking about perspectives, what's more important perspective to change than the ones of ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
The negative ones of ourselves.
Yeah, I think for me it's echoing all of that, but also the messages that we send out in the ways that the media are interested in what we're doing, and having a story opportunity to tell people about what it's like to be a trans man, a trans woman, asexual, you know, pansexual, bisexual, you know, a lot of difference within the community. So to be an LGBT plus Christian, you know, or somebody who has no faith, you know, or Jew or Muslim or whatever you might be, that you have that visibility through Pride, and that it can be seen, and to become a news item, I remember the first time we were on the front of the Hull Daily Mail, and it was like, you know, it's mainly about, you know, what acts have you got coming? People obsess with, so who's the headliner? You know, who have you got to come and perform? And actually, for most people, it will be the interactions with an organisation like MESMAC, Dr. MESMAC, or or others, or the fact that you meet someone from maybe homicide police and you think, actually, that might be a career for me, because they're okay with, I can do that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's it's those things that might be really important, and actually could change someone's personal perspective to their life, and that they can be a family, and they can adopt, and they can get help, and they can take, you know, condoms and lube. They can ask for advice about sexual health. They can ask for advice about relationships, and they can bring their kids. And then the parade actually going out into the community, almost like in a sort of missionary sense of kind of, here we are, you know, we're not trying to convert you, we're not recruiting, we have enough luck, we've got 60,000, we don't need any more. But it's, you know, and it's just reassuring people that there isn't this, you know, I'm just going to come in and I'm just going, ooh, and then you're going to be gay. It doesn't work that way. But I think that it wins people over, and it's a win-win, because through love and friendship and engagement with people, they realise that, you know, they can, for a lot of people, change their mind on how they perhaps have seen things before, and the things that they've experienced as children. Maybe they've learned at school from other people through bullying, or through, you know, even at work, you know, and they come to a Pride event, and it challenges that, but it's in a soft way, it's in a loving way. It's like somebody putting their arm around you and saying, you know, it's okay, have you thought about doing this differently? And I think without a Pride to do that, then we are relying on other things, and there isn't really anything quite like it that will definitely give you that experience, that knowledge, and that opportunity to see everybody, and to, you know, to kind of experience that queuing up for a bus on Beverley Road coming down into Hull. And I've heard stories of people driving down Beverley Road and seeing all these queues waiting, people in rainbow stuff and glitter and feather boas and whatever. I mean, stereotyping now, but feather boas? I mean, who has a feather boa on a hot day?
Yeah, that's witchy.
But it's great that people can come and there be no questions asked, and there be just as flamboyant or not. You know, for some people who don't need Pride, good luck, you know, good for you if you don't need it. But there's an awful lot of people who need that kind of support, you know, who might be questioning their sexual orientation, their gender identity. And this is a place where they are not going to be on their own. And I think having that message for me personally was always that thing. I did feel like the only person in the world who felt like this. And it's a very lonely place, and especially physically, you live somewhere like a small village and you are, you know, on your own. That to have this and see this and it be very, you know, out and open and engaging, just speaks volumes, really. And long may it continue, that people have this. It's a great thing. And thank you, you know, for the people who helped me, and for those events that I went to as a, you know, sometimes I do love going to a Pride as a punter, not as a volunteer. It's really nice to be incognito and just sort of think, oh, I've had enough now, I'm just going to go and sit down over there.
Yeah, just going to go relax.
Whereas that drag queen's not come on stage, Andy, you've got 10 minutes to fill. There's a microphone, off you go. And you just, you know, it's just kind of getting that parade gone. You know what I mean? Just, oh, it's great. It's great. It's gone. It's happening. The band are playing. They've got the full council. Everybody's going on their way. They're loving it, and they're just applauding and they're clapping, and they're, you know, I'm sat there in my wheelchair and I've got my rainbow flags waving, and I love everybody. It's great.